Arguably the most globally recognized mythical creature from Australia is the bunyip, an important staple in Aboriginal folklore. This amphibious being poses a threat to all who travel near inland waters. Lurking in lagoons, deep water holes, swamps, and rivers, this predatory creature presents a clear danger to humans and animals alike, threatening to drown or eat them at a moment's notice. Originating in the stories and beliefs of the southeastern Indigenous peoples of Australia, accounts of the bunyip are widely varied, but a few things are for certain. It's big, scary, and won't hesitate to kill you. I'm Dr. Emily Zarka, and this is Monstrum. The word bunyip most likely came from an Aboriginal word for an amphibious spirit being. Australian Indigenous peoples believe the beings are separate from the ancestors and the Aboriginal people themselves, and were believed to exist alongside humans. The bunyip goes by several other names, depending on who is telling the story. The tricky thing about bunyips is that there are so many different accounts as to what the creature actually looks like. While many of these sightings describe a four-legged creature resembling a seal, others tell of a chimera-type being resembling different animals like emus, horses, kangaroos, and alligators. Some stories claim the bunyip has shaggy and long hair, while others say it has feathers or scales. Booming noises and loud roars indicate their presence, and they are even capable of causing illness. Some Indigenous accounts give the bunyip the powers of sorcery, capable of luring their victims to them, which makes them even more dangerous. The huge number of variations of the bunyip's reported appearance seem confusing at first glance. But you could argue that the variation of the creature is what has kept it alive in Australia for so long. There's no one cohesive story because there is no one group of Indigenous Aboriginal peoples. Before Europeans colonized Australia, there was an estimated 250 different languages spoken there. Then add different cultures and geographic locations, and the variations between bunyip accounts begin to make more sense. Regardless of the form this water spirit takes, or the details of the story, the bunyip always functions as a warning of the danger of inland water. It serves as a lesson to children and adults alike to respect the unpredictability of water and the dangers it presents. One Aboriginal story tells of a four-legged, milk-white bunyip with a big bull head and large eyes that prowls the land looking for wrongdoers to attack. In another story, the bunyip lurks in the water with its glowing red eyes, attacking a woman who goes to fetch water at night, tearing off her arm. The next morning, when the creature is hunted, all that can be found is a blood-covered black and red feather. In another Aboriginal story, a boy is taken by a bunyip while playing by the river at night. Referred to as the old fellow, the bunyip takes the boy to its cave. An adult goes to save the boy, rubbing his body with dead body fat before diving into the river and finding the cave. There, he waves feathers and sings, putting the bunyip to sleep and bringing the boy back to safety. Although the bunyip poses a severe threat, harming them was often taboo. Another tale tells of a steamer that suddenly comes to a halt in the river. The captain goes to shoot the bunyip that is keeping the barge in place, but others aboard warn him, "Don't do that. If you do that, you will die. Don't do that. You'll die a bad death." But he doesn't heed their warning and kills the creature. The captain later gets very sick, his whole body covered in oozing blisters, and in 2 weeks, he is dead. The stories of the bunyip were told by the Indigenous peoples with such conviction and vividness that the first European explorers and colonizers to hear of this creature initially believed that it must be some prehistoric animal that remained unidentified by European science, and believed that they would eventually find a specimen to study. It's worth keeping in mind that real Australian fauna was totally foreign and flat out weird to European travelers. Things like black swans, wombats, platypus, and echidnas were seen by Europeans for the first time in the 19th century. Add to that the discovery of large megafauna fossils, and the idea of the bunyip seemed less far-fetched at the time. Take the diprotodon, an extinct giant marsupial with claws, whose appearance resembles some of the large, hairy descriptions of bunyips. Then there's this slightly smaller megafauna species that Indigenous Australians lived alongside for at least 17,000 years. Newspapers in the 19th century reported bunyip sightings, and proposed explanations. Theories included crocodiles, misplaced sea mammals like seals, fossil bones, the duck-billed platypus, swamp gas, and the sounds from swamp birds, like the Australasian bittern bird, who is commonly called the bunyip bird for its nocturnal nature and booming call. In 1846, a book about Australia published in London included an excerpt from an 1845 Australian newspaper article about the discovery of a supposed bunyip bone, making the legend international. In 1847, in what is now New South Wales, a cycloptic head was presented for examination as possible evidence of the creature. Advertised as a bunyip skull, it was put on display for public viewing at the Australian Museum in Sydney. But the specimen was eventually identified by naturalist W.S. Maclay to likely be the malformed skull of a foal, altered with taxidermy to appear even more unusual. While speculations of the bunyip circulated, geographer George Windsor Earle proposed that the bunyip was really a dugong, a manatee-like water mammal. Some folklore says that before the rivers were dammed in southeastern Australia, one of the bunyip's most prominent areas, all kinds of oceanic creatures, from sharks to small whales, would occasionally travel inland. Australia does have the world's largest population of dugongs. It is possible that high sea tides during the summer and low river levels could have led to an animal usually only seen at sea making its way into more interior areas of the country. While older beliefs like the dreaming ancestors and ghosts and spirits endured, Aboriginal folklore was influenced by European cultures, which can help explain why from the mid-19th century on, the bunyip was described more as a humanoid spirit, and in one instance, a half-man, half-fish with a matted crop of reeds for hair. To me, it matters less what creature or thing actually inspired the bunyip's physical appearance than the fact that it persisted for so long in Aboriginal culture. Bunyip stories force a recognition of the varied cultural and spiritual beliefs of the Indigenous peoples of Australia before Anglo-European intervention. These tales solidify Indigenous identities and connections to the landscape in a long tradition that continues today.